Imagine a world where Premier League clubs could only use homegrown players. No Salah, no Haaland, no Sonny, just the best talent raised, nurtured and sometimes poached from England's own. Well, imagine no more. As we spend 10 years on Football Manager locked into a homegrown Premier League. Money won't save you this time, Pep. Let's get it started.
Let's go.
So we're starting off 4 games into season number 1, and you can already see it is chaos in the Premier League under these homegrown rules. Ipswich Town, the Tractor Boys, are leading the way, joint top with Chelsea. George Hurst, Liam Delap stand out so far for Ipswich, whilst Cole Palmer coolly leading the scoring charts for Chelsea. But the real magic is happening at the bottom of the table. And let me tell you, Man United fans, you may want to look away now, because you are 19th. 19th. And your rival City are in 17th. You're both winless. Liverpool fans, you're probably loving life seeing that. But don't love it too much, because you're not doing too much better either. You're in 12th. My beloved Tottenham Hotspur are in 13th. Starting at the bottom and working my way up. Man United are first. And you can see that is essentially an academy side. The only names I recognise there are Marcus Rashford, Garnacho and Harry Maguire.
I'd like to go in hard on the United players, but today I'm actually feeling sorry for them.
And if you look on the right-hand side, all of their foreign players are unregistered and in some cases on the transfer list. Delo's on the transfer list. The captain Bruno Fernandes is transfer listed for 82 million quid. The January window and next summer are going to be very tasty indeed. And there is another reason I've started with Man United. They have got one of 3 players that I'm going to keep my eye on for the whole decade that we do this homegrown thing with. And that is, of course, Mr. Kobbie Mainoo. Starts the game off looking pretty good already. But the amount of game time that he's going to get from minute 1, well, when he's back from injury anyway, he's going to be a freak come the end of the decade. So he's going to be a player that we keep our eye on. Moving to the blue side of Manchester, I'm actually quite surprised that they're not doing too well after 4 games, because they've got Foden and Rico Lewis in midfield. Jack Grealish, Oscar Bob, decent players, Stones and Walker, and Scott Carson's actually going to be getting some game time at City. Next up is Tottenham, and they are very top heavy. Johnson, Solanke and Maddison should get them the goals, but that back line is more League 2 than Premier League in my opinion, so it could be a bit of a frosty year for Spurs. And Archie Gray is the second of 3 players we're going to keep our eye on. Signed for Spurs for 40 million in the summer. In theory, playing every single game in the Premier League for 10 years, he should be a beast come the end of the 10 seasons. So he's going to be player number 2 we keep our eye on. The red half of North London is up next, and to be honest, they do have a pretty good team. Tierney and Ben White, good fullbacks to have. Declan Rice on Football Manager is just so good. Look at those mentals and physicals. And then their wingers, Saka and Sterling. Saka in particular, he is a beast on this game in normal rules. And the third and final player we're going to be keeping our eye on is, of course, their star boy himself, Mr. Ethan Nwaneri. For some reason, he's in their under-18s, but he has already played 2 games in the Premier League, got an assist, and for a 16-year-old, those are incredible stats. He's probably going to be the closest we have to just a genuine elite world-class player out of the 3 players we're going to be looking at. Going all the way up to the north of England right now, we've got Newcastle, and the reason I've picked Newcastle as a team to look at is because their starting 11 for the homegrown rules is unreal. I know every single player in that starting 11, and what makes them even more exciting is they are one of the few teams to have a homegrown manager. Can Eddie Howe bring it home for the English? So enough waffle, let's get season 1 out the way. The run to January was absolutely brutal in the Prem, with shock results occurring on a near-on weekly basis. The panic led to a whopping 6 sackings by Christmas.
It's embarrassing.
Ipswich sadly couldn't keep up their incredible start, meaning Cole Palmer had Chelsea sitting top at the start of January. Rashford had fired United out of the relegation places, while Spurs now face the fight of their life to stay in the Premier League.
But for me, this is unacceptable. For me.
Daniel Levy dug deep in his pockets to make sure the season wasn't defined by the ultimate Spursiness, whilst all the foreign stars started to slowly leave for clubs far and wide. It's been a real one, Sonny.
He was special.
But would all of the movement in the January window see the league shift once again by season's end? And yes, it bloody well did, and thank God it did as well, because Tottenham signings in January has saved them from relegation. They've come 15th in the end, just one position off United. Shocking from the two of them. Brentford, Bournemouth, Wolves fans, I'm sorry, but you guys are dropping into the Championship. Liverpool and City actually finished in the bottom half. Shocking again, and it was so poor from City that they've sacked Pep Guardiola right at the end. They've got Ben Wilkinson in charge as an interim manager, and what's hilarious is he went and won the bloody FA Cup with them. And what about the top of the league? So Chelsea had been the front runners for the majority of the season. Did they hold on? And no, they didn't, as Eddie Howe has led Newcastle to their first ever Premier League title. They scored 91 goals, which, if I sort by that, is nearly 20 goals better than the second best Crystal Palace. Palace coming in third, by the way. Congratulations to the Eagles, getting Champions League football. Did not expect that. But 91 goals for Newcastle. They hit 14 against poor old Bournemouth across 2 games. Brighton got the Europa League, and I am delighted to see that Ipswich and Southampton got conference football, got European football, 2 promoted teams. And what's a little bit odd about that is Southampton didn't finish in the European spots, which leads me to think that one of these teams have won the Carabao Cup. We know City won the FA Cup, which means they're in the Europa League, which does make me think that Ipswich, if I go to schedules, oh my giddy god, they have won the Carabao Cup by beating Arsenal in the final.
He flopped it. He bottled it.
So what I'm going to do now, skip forward to season 5. By that point, all of the big foreign talent should have found new homes. So without further ado, let's get to season 5. Within a couple of seasons, most of the Premier League's remaining elite foreign talent had left English shores, with Europe's best clubs now dominating with an influx of Premier League superstars. The usual stars enjoyed years of dominating performances, but newly spotlighted English talent also started to shine through. So much so that the national team suddenly took on a much newer, younger shape. But by the end of the 5 seasons, who had planned, strategised and lucked their way to the most successful and best squad in the league? And from the looks of things, Arsenal have adapted the best at the end of 5 years. They've just won the league at a canter by 10 points. They've got a much better goal difference than second place Newcastle. What's even better, Sunderland, a proper fallen giant of English football, are back in the Premier League and getting European football. And from looking at this, it seems like the Premier League has lost West Ham and Aston Villa to relegation.
How can you do that?
So if we look at the league history, just to see where the teams got relegated, I'm back in season 1 and I'm just going to work my way up quickly to season 5 just to see who won the league and again where West Ham and Villa got relegated. So season 2, City won the league and we lost West Ham in season 2. Season 3, City won the league again, finishing level on points with Arsenal, beating them on goal difference. How close is that? Didn't lose Villa in season 3 though. Norwich, we lost Forest in season 3, and Bournemouth came up and went straight back down. And look at Man United. They survived relegation by 3 points. Could you imagine?
I'm disgusted with it.
Going into season 4, Arsenal won the league. So season 5, they've just done back-to-back league titles. Ipswich, though, finally getting Champions League qualification. Lovely stuff. And we lost Aston Villa in year 4.
Good evening.
Starting with Arsenal, and you can see that their team has changed quite a lot. They've got Ivan Toney up top. They signed him from Leicester for 50 million, who'd got him from the Saudis for free, so his contract must have just run out. Imagine the wage drop-off between going from a Saudi club to Leicester, by the way. But since Arsenal have signed him, he has banged goals for fun, 20 league goals in all 3 seasons. Elsewhere, they've signed Yunus Musa, who I was surprised to see because he's American, but I didn't realise he actually came through the Arsenal Academy. We're also seeing our first splatterings of a regen. Emmanuel Mpofu, 2 caps for England already at the age of 20. He looks unreal as a centre-back, a little bit on the short side. But this is actually the reason I'm looking at squads in season 5 and not season 10. By the end of season 10, most Premier League clubs are going to be filled up with players like this. But Arsenal have also signed Tomori, absolutely phenomenal signing, to be honest, 59 million from AC Milan. Chelsea are up next and their team has changed drastically. They've still got Palmer up top, but they've signed Evan Ferguson from Brighton for 129 million. I'm not too surprised by that because he is a wonder kid, a legit wonder kid in real life. So a few years in, he's going to be developed. They've also signed Jacob Ramsey from relegated Aston Villa, got him for 62 million. Raheem Sterling's back on the right wing, and then their defensive midfielders, Scott McTominay and Calvin Phillips, the rejects. Man City's team looks a little bit weird at the start because you can still see they've got some foreign talent in there, and that is because they've just lost the Europa League final to Benfica.
He got cooked.
That is important to remember. The European competitions don't have the same homegrown rules as the Premier League during this experiment. So that is why you'll see some foreign talent sticking around longer than expected because they're still technically getting some game time. And if we look at the right to really see their homegrown players, we can see they've signed Solanke, Calvert-Lewin, Tammy Abraham, even Michael Elise is in there. Isn't he French? Okay, Michael Elise has declared for England on this. He's got 2 caps for them. How much did they sign him? What? Liverpool signed Elise for 103 million and then have shipped him off to City for 50 million a few years later. And he has not played great being back in the Premier League. Wow, you should have stayed French, mate. Oh! And Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who got 32 league goals in that first season, winning the Golden Boot, they immediately signed for 115 million, people. 115 million.
What?
Their local rivals, Manchester United, are actually looking pretty disappointing 5 years in. But one name that definitely stands out, who's now into the first team squad, is Kai Rooney, Wayne's son Kai. At the end of the 10 years, I'm hoping he's their starting striker. So that's another little subplot we're going to keep an eye out on. And last but not least is Liverpool. Now, we already know at some point Liverpool signed Elise for 103 million. And the rest of the squad looks a bit weird as well. So Ben Doak is one of their own. Anyone who's played Football Manager long enough knows he always becomes one of those god-tier players. But they've got Jack Grealish on the left, who they signed for 72 million from City. How old is he now? 32. They are not going to be getting that money back. Still got Elliott on the right. Conor Gallagher they brought in for 82 million from Atletico Madrid, which is madness in my opinion. Ward-Prowse they've got. They signed him for 39 million. West Ham got relegated. That's what happens. Alex Scott, Tottenham signed him in season 1. Tottenham signed him in season 1 for 35 million, and Liverpool have signed him for 160 million.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
And for those of you wondering about the English national team, well, Roberto Mancini is now in charge of the national squad. We're in 2028, so we're in the month that Euro 2028 is going to start. And if we look at the tactics, they've just played a friendly. So this isn't their starting squad, but it shows you the players that are at least in and around the English first team squad now. So Joe Bellingham, who we didn't actually look at, is now at Chelsea. He joined West Ham, they got relegated, and then he went to Chelsea. We've got Harry Gray and Archie Gray, the 2 Gray brothers. Harry Gray is now at Arsenal. Obviously, Archie Gray is at Tottenham. It's an awkward Christmas dinner, if you ask me. If we look on the bench, you can see Jimmy J. Morgan, Samuel Ealing, Liam Delap, Ethan Nwaneri, one of the players that we're keeping our eye on. He's now in and around the first team squad. And they're in a group with Italy, Sweden and Austria. So once we get to the end of the 10 seasons, we'll have a little look back to see if they won anything with their new look side. And speaking of season 10, it's time that we got there. So whilst these next 5 years simulate, hit that like and subscribe if you like the video. It helps get out to more eyeballs. And let's see who's the most successful team 10 years into a homegrown Premier League. And the Toffees are your final Premier League champions 10 years into a homegrown Premier League. I absolutely love seeing that because Everton have been slowly but surely pushing and pushing and pushing. If we have a quick look at their team, I mean, look at that. Eddie Howe is their manager. He won the title with Newcastle in season 1, and now he's gone and done it in season 10 with Everton.
And the game's gone.
They've got regens all over the shop. This is what I meant by the end of it, basically regens start to take over. But they do have some real players as well. Garner's been there the entire time. You just love to see that. Branthwaite as well, their new captain. Eddie Howe must have loved Lewis Hall at Newcastle because he's now using him 10 years later at Everton to win league titles. And they've got Quansah, very controversial one because he's a Scouser, worked his way all the way across England and now is back in Merseyside, but in the blue half and winning league titles. Unless somebody's just won an unreal amount of Premier League titles or trophies in general, Everton are my biggest winners of this homegrown Premier League.
It's like praising the postman for delivering your letters, he's supposed, isn't it? That's his job.
And annoyingly and frustratingly for this Tottenham fan is actually Arsenal, who are your biggest winners of a decade of a homegrown Premier League. They've won it 5 times in a row. We last checked in the 27-28 season. They'd done it twice in a row then, and they've gone and done it another 3 times. Just had to be them, didn't it? Had to be them. And Everton are actually back-to-back winners now. But with Arsenal winning it 5 times in a row, I assume Ethan Nwaneri is a beast and is probably the best out of the 3 players that we identified at the start. But I'm going to start with Man United and Kobbie Mainoo, and I also want to see how Kai Rooney got on. And not only is Kai Rooney now their starting striker, but they've also got Van Persie's kid, Shaquille Van Persie, starting on the left-hand side. I mean, his stats look unbelievable. I don't know whether on the updated database that they've just made him unreal. He is actually performing under his expected goals, but 14 league goals, 23 years old, 15 caps for England, only 2 goals. Not quite as good as his dad. And then Van Persie's kid, Shaquille Van Persie, when did he... He's valued at 130 to 391 million. I mean, his attributes aren't all that good. He's got 10 league goals himself. That is unreal. That is genuinely unreal. So Arsenal did sign him for 49 million in the 29-30 season. And then he has genuinely followed like his dad and gone and joined United. Probably spent a little bit too much there, Man United. But obviously they are not the main kids that we want to keep our eye on. Well, they're not kids anymore, the 3 that we're talking about. So Kobbie Mainoo, has he turned into a freak? Kobbie Mainoo has not developed into a freak. What's his injury record? He had 3 months out at one point, but that was about it. He has not developed like I thought he would at all.
That's bizarre. A lot of nonsense there, wasn't it?
Annoyingly, our second player, Archie Gray, is now at Chelsea, having started at Tottenham. If I look at his history, he went for 74 million to Real Madrid, barely played, and then he went for 74 million to Chelsea. And he has developed, at least attributes-wise, a lot better than Kobbie Mainoo did. But in terms of impact that he's had, although 51 caps for England, he's a mid-range. I thought he would be better. And then last but not least is Ethan Nwaneri, still at Arsenal. And again, he hasn't developed like I thought he would. I thought we would be seeing a lot of dark greens, but obviously not. They've been playing him as more of a centre mid, which I guess is good because it means all 3 players we looked at were centre mids. And I assume he's got a much better goal record. Yeah, I mean, one season he hit 21 league goals. He hit 18 as well. He's won the league 5 times in a row with Arsenal. He's definitely the biggest winner out of the 3, so I'm going to give him a thumbs up. Everton have actually won the FA Cup twice in the last 10 years. I don't think 2 FA Cups is enough to catch up Arsenal's 5 Premier League. So Arsenal still have the biggest winners title in my opinion, and they have won the FA Cup themselves in the 29-30 season. Well, Everton have just done a domestic double because they've beaten Tottenham in the current season's final of the Carabao Cup. United have won it. Ipswich have done it twice. We saw them do it in season 1, and they've also done it in the 20-30-31 season. United have won it a couple times. Tottenham finally won a trophy in the 24-25 season. Bloody hell.
It's been 84 years.
I'm going to be shocked if anyone's won the Champions League. I know they haven't, but what is crazy is PSG have won the Champions League 4 years in a row.
Well, God almighty, would you look at that?
Did the homegrown rules in the Prem finally mean England brought something home? Well, if I go to competitions, we didn't win a World Cup, but we did win the Euros in that 2028 season. We did it by beating France in the final. Bukayo Saka scored in the 96th minute via a penalty, with Declan Rice equalising in the 89th minute. Samuel Ealing, one of those players that you probably wouldn't expect to see in there. He's played a lot. I'm pretty sure he's now at Tottenham. Joined Tottenham for 75 million from Aston Villa. We brought it home, people. We brought it home. Maybe that's all the FA need to do. Just add some real harsh Brexit rules to squad registrations in the Premier League.
You all laughed at me.
So there you have it. Hope you've enjoyed this experiment. Again, If you haven't already, like, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. And I shall see you in the next one. Whew! Homegrown, baby.